Welcome everybody to the Economic Development Committee meeting today for the 8th of December. Just want to explain to everyone that the meeting has been recorded and will be live streamed on the YouTube channel. We are under a COVID-19 protection framework in orange setting, and we'll ask everyone to continue to scan in and follow the hygiene measures. I don't need to explain the health and safety requirements because we've got no public here today. But if you are voting and you are online, and I think I have got some councillors online. We have got Councillor Bowen, is that the other one? Just Councillor Bowen online, so just make sure that you let us know when you wish to vote or speak, thank you. And also any presenters, could you just identify yourself when you wish to speak? So thank you for that. We'll first go through the agenda. First off, apologies. Councillor Finlay, any other apologies? Oh, sorry, and Councillor Mickelid. Okay, I'd like to move that, seconded by Councillor Dennison. If we'd all like to vote, please. That's passed unanimously, thank you. Moving on to, I haven't got any notification of additional items, so we'll move on to any declarations of interest. Again, I've had no declarations of interest. So moving on to public comment, and again, no public comment. Moving on to item number 5, which is the retail health check profile, and I'll ask Julie and Peter to come forward for that item. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou, councillors. I'm very happy to present to you the retail health check profile here. As you know, these profiles are descriptive pieces of research about the primary sectors in Palmerston North in the region. The reason that we do a retail sector is because of the large job share. We're happy to answer questions, but we'll assume it's been read.
Thank you for that. It's a really good piece of research, and I really do appreciate what you have done with this. I will first off open it up for. First off, I will move it, and seconded by Councillor Dennison, and then we'll open it up for questions if anybody's got any questions. The Mayor.
Thanks, Peter, Julie, for the report. I have to say it's really encouraging to see that the retail sector is bouncing back relatively well. One of the questions, I mean, CEDA have obviously fed into all this, haven't they?
Yeah. Yes, they saw various drafts, yeah.
And also, a lot of the data comes from what, Paymark, Stats New Zealand, is that, where's the data source?
It's Verisk, which a company called MarketView has now changed to Verisk, yeah, so they use the Paymark data, but also estimate spending across the ANZ network as well.
Okay. Oh, look, I'll leave it at that, thank you.
Just a question from me, a couple of questions. Anchor stores, so where do you get that information on the anchor stores, and what identifies as an anchor store?
That was some research that was done by the students when they did the work for the earlier profiles. So that was sort of a conversation about what were, particularly for the plaza, what are the key stores that bring people into the plaza to shop. Yeah, we know people come from quite a wide area, say, to shop at Kmart, and then we'll spend at the food court and other retailers within the plaza.
Okay. So it's not a spending dollar amount that brings in an anchor store, it's more of a brand?
Or an attraction, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, doesn't appear to be any more comments? No questions? Okay, thank you for that. Is there any comments? I think you were trying to comment. Okay, the Mayor wants to comment.
Sorry, Madam Chair. Look, just want to acknowledge the officer's work. It's really, it's quite interesting. You don't think of retail as a big sector, but obviously the numbers are large. You know, nearly 9,700 employees and $486 million worth of GDP. But some interesting things here. If you look on page 22, cafe and restaurants have increased by 84%. Admittedly, it's over a period of years, but it's interesting to see the hospitality sector so strong, as are the department stores. One other comment that I found really interesting, because we get sometimes labelled as not a visitor destination or tourism destination, is our strong visitor spend. And I believe we're 12th out of 64 TAs, which really is quite incredible. And something that I hope the media might pick up on at some stage in a positive manner. But anyway, thanks for the work, and I think it really helps inform where investment needs to go, certainly in things like Streets for People and other city-wide investment. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now vote on that. Thank you, everyone. That's passed unanimously, thank you. We were now going to just ask Andrew Heafy, who's online.
Hello, Mr. Chairman.
Hello, Andrew. He's going to see you in a minute.
Look, can you see me?
Not yet. Hold on a minute. There you are. So, Andrew, we're just going to ask you some questions about the health check and what you basically feel and how it relates to the plaza. What's your view on it?
Well, I had a quick review of the report, and thanks for asking me to quickly speak on this, Leonie. The plaza follows a very similar trend to what the report outlines. We do use review information as well. I think in the short term you can't read too much into this trend. What has happened due to COVID is distorted the numbers. We have many categories that are doing extremely well and have bounced back. But within that, there are certainly categories that have not. We like to look at October 2019, say, versus October 2021 and look at those variations there to pull out those COVID periods. We have seen a change of habits, and particularly the mature customer and those tenants that are looking to cater for those are the ones that are struggling. We also have seen food court and services and cafes struggle from that 2-year period. I know we see that 84% increase in cafes and things, but that's over that long period of time. What's happened is with personal services and food, once you've missed the opportunity to purchase or get a haircut, you can never pick that back up, where other physical retail you can. If you need a pair of shoes or whatever, you can purchase it at another time outside any lockdown situations. So they have really struggled when you look at a yearly, we look at a moving annual turnover over a period of a year. So food and personal really hit. In fact, personal services at the plaza is down over 30%. So it's taken a pretty big hit. In saying that, well, we have different categories than the Paymart, and we break them down into smaller sections. So we have, and that would be telcos, the likes of a Lotto, likes of others. They have been affected from online, particularly Lotto, in the change of habits that the lockdown has caused. So when I do look at the the health of the retail, while it has been bounced back and it is pretty healthy, there's still people struggling. We have several tenants didn't renew on expiries, Lush being one of them, which was extremely interesting. After COVID, their strategy was to pull back and just concentrate on Auckland, Wellington, Christchurch, and the rest of the country can shop online. And we're starting to see a number of that, where they've managed to get their online presence up and running and tweaked. We did have a couple of casualties, one of them being STA Travel, which is obvious, and Colette, that was an Australian-based handbag and costume jewellery store that was in trouble in Australia and fell over due to COVID. So the health of the retail sector is strong, but there is still areas that are of concern within the sales side of things. From a property point of view, we do have some vacancies, and I did see the report that vacancies are low, but yes, we can fill these vacancies. We can fill them with $2 shops. We can fill them with any retailer we like, but we are struggling at times to find the quality. And with that, we certainly sit on some vacancies and have some pop-ups in there. With the lack of quality tenants out there, there is pressure on rents going forward. So that's going to hit the NOI for somewhere like Kiwi. And the time to take to sign up and to get fit-outs done, go through that whole process has been drawn out. Just looking at the other areas of the retail health, we are seeing a lot more crime, a significant increase in crime, and particularly the youth. It's just ongoing daily. And we even had burglaries in jewellers yesterday in the middle of the daylight. So it is just something that, as much as we do with the police and as much as they can do, it's still a huge concern. So that safety area of retail and the streets is not helped by beggars. It's not helped by the crime that's going on and kids hanging out and getting up to mischief and the vandalism. It's not so much the shoplifting, but it's just the damage that they do and the mindless stuff that just winds people up. As part of the last couple of years with COVID, it has been a lot of pressure on the landlord with abatements. All our tenants have come cap in hand, as you can be well aware. And as an organisation across the country, we have handed back many millions of dollars for abatements to keep the tenants alive. We would have liked to have seen maybe council come on board as well with some sort of abatement on rents over those periods. Those costs could directly get passed on to tenants, so it's been hard with the rising costs, particularly rates, 8% plus, and we're seeing significant rises in insurance. And come 2025, the fire levy will come through, which will probably increase insurance by 35 to 40%. So it's just massive what's waiting out there, and that will be huge casualties to those tenants because they can only afford so much. I think that's really about what I have to say. Unless anybody's got any questions, I'm happy to answer. And,
Thank you, Andrew. We've got a couple of quick questions. I've got just a couple myself. Online shopping, it has affected the businesses in the plaza?
It's hard to tell at this stage until things settle down, but I would suggest yes. look, we have adapted over the years. It's been a strategy of ours to move into other areas where online does not have a big impact, and that's particularly in the hospitality side of things. It's particularly in the services. I mean, you can't buy a haircut online, you can't get nails done, and these are sort of things that we've done as a strategy over a period of time. So, but looking at the industry, yes, it has. It certainly has.
My second question was about parking. Do you think you've got enough parks, or will you put another block on the top?
Well, currently we've got issues, you'll be aware, seismic issues after the February earthquakes last year, and we're still trying to deal with those. It's not only the bill, but dealing with soil and other aspects of the CBD that creates a headache for structural engineers. So currently we have a section of Car Park 1, which is the countdown end, closed. And with that, and with the lease agreement with council, we've had to relocate those council car parks across to Car Park 2. So it's been a double whammy for us. We've lost the car parks that moved to Car Park 2 from council, and we've had to close down half that building anyway. So at the moment, I think Christmas has come early. People have realised there is a significant issue with supply chains out there, so purchasing early, which will help, but there's always going to be that last 2-week rush and massive congestion on streets and frustration because of lack of car parking.
Okay, there's a couple of councillors who want to ask you a question. We've got Councillor Butt.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Andrew, for sharing this information. If I have heard it right, you said that the plaza owners or administration has spent billions of dollars across the country helping their tenants. Can I ask you what percentage you spent in Palmerston North, and was it across the board, or there were special tenants who were helped?
It was millions, not billions, and it was generally across the board. In fact, we had several major tenants who we gave abatements to, and they handed them back after the bounce back. So that was generous of them. Kiwi did look to take the wage subsidy, but once we saw the bounce back and the lack of casualties with regards to where we were sitting as a management business, that was handed back as well. But for the plazas, to give you an example, for most of the lockdowns, or all of the lockdowns, we have abated the rent by 50%.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And Councillor Hancock.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks, Andrew. Look, I just want to pick up on a comment that you made about crime trends within the plaza. So my question is really in two parts. One is, can you just give me a little bit more information just around sort of the time period where it seems to have, I guess, increased, and the trend in terms of those behaviours. And also, I just want to touch on whether or not there's actually any agreed policy and practice across all of the tenancies in that regard.
To answer the last question, yes, there is policy. We have security on in the centre and in the car parks. So their first protocol is to have them, because they're on the floor, and for them to assist within the tenancy. It is their responsibility with regards to looking after their products in their stores, so the shoplifting side, but the security will assist. We tend to have a zero policy, so we will trespass if we have offenders, and we get the police where we can. A lot of the time they're extremely busy, and for shoplifting and minor things, they are happy to get the information, but it doesn't seem to go any further than that. Times of the day, it's all over. The incident yesterday was at 4 minutes in a jeweller. The school holidays, there's certainly an increasing crime with youth, and disruption within the centre. There's a particular group of teenage girls that will come through, push over plant pots, go into stores, throw stones that are in the plant pots right through the store. I've even seen them scatter them across the floor when the elderly's on their walkers. So I've got no respect for anybody and anything. So we're working with the police. Yes, in the school holidays we get them to walk through and be seen. That helps at times, but they can't be there the whole time. Security certainly get hassled by them, and they know their rights. They can't be touched. They can't do anything because they're all underage. So you ask them to leave. We've had hand sanitisers taken into the square smashed. We've had signage. We've had all sorts of stuff. It just is ongoing. It's a daily, weekly thing.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Andrew. Just one last question, though. Is just in terms of the numbers of youths, has that been increasing over recent months, or?
It's been there for the last year or so. It just seems to be boredom, I think, knowing what they can and can't get away with. And look, we had youths on the roof, try and get them down. You know, they've damaged things up there, run over solar panels, and yet, you know, you don't have any comeback. You can't send a bill to them. They can't afford it. So it's just wearing more and more costs. It's certainly a huge health and safety when they get access. We've shut off that car park where it's got seismic issues. They're up there all the time. They seem to be able to climb up the areas that the more and more barriers we put up, the more and more tempting it is for them to gain access. So it is a big health and safety problem on that side of things.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And last question, Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Andrew, for presenting today and answering a few questions. This is another one about sort of current matters. Would like to understand how the vaccine certificate requirements are being responded to and supported both by the plaza as a whole and at the tenancy level.
So the plaza is not managing vaccine passes at all. And the reason being is the centre has essential services. So you have to provide access to everybody, to pharmacies, to supermarkets, and to other essential services, banks, etc. So we've been told that it's not to be managed at the centre level, but it can be managed at the store level. So the hair salons, the beauty, the massage, all those, it is mandatory. So and we have 2 tenants to date that have chosen to be mandatory. So general retail, the answer is no. At the moment, we're working with MB and the Ministry of Health to get heads around the food court. Currently, the food court is takeaway only, but you can seat in the food court seating zone, which is controlled by centre, not by the tenants, as long as there's that metre distancing. So, albeit there's a lot of information regarding restaurants and cafes, food courts is the one that keeps stumping everybody how to control that. So, to answer your question, no, we're not mandating, we're not viewing passes at all. It's just the individual tenants.
Thanks, Andrew. Madam Chair.
Thank you, Andrew. Thanks for answering our questions and thanks for giving us that update on where the plaza's up to with the retail health. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay, I would like to move that we've received that presentation. Thank you, Councillor Dennison. Can we look to vote on that, please? That's passed unanimously. We'll move on to the next item, which is item number 7, and that's the presentation from CEDA. So we'll look to hear from David Wright. Thank you.
Yes, good afternoon, councillors. Can you hear me? Excellent. Now, we've got a presentation, so can you bring it up from your end? Or is it from us?
Yeah, we can see it. It's right in
You
front
can
of
see
us.
it?
Yep.
Oh, there we go.
Excellent. So who's under control of that? Is that us or you?
Us.
You are.
Right. Okay, I'm underway. I've got with me here today Sarah Towers, and we thought we'd just do a deeper dive towards the end of the presentation into some of the recent initiatives around talent and skills. So it's a bit of a tag team, and then I'll just finish up on that. So just to begin with, thanks very much, as always, for the opportunity. I'm just going to touch an update on some of our current work streams. So if we can have the next slide, just to remind again, through our, have we lost it?
No, we can see it.
Okay.
Okay, are you on the page with vision, goals and strategic areas? Yeah, it's just, sorry, Councillor, I can't see from here. So we've, just to remind there again, in terms of our letter of expectation with council shareholders, we're there very much around issues including inward investment, developing the talent pipeline and domestic visitation. And I'm going to touch on some of those issues today, and they remain the priorities for both PNCC and for MDC. All right, here are we now. In terms of...
I think I've lost control of presenting it.
All right, Hannah, have you got control of it?
No.
Can you still see it?
Yeah, we are still on the vision and goals screen.
Okay, if we can turn to the business investment slide.
Hannah's going to take control.
Okay,
Wonderful.
thank you.
Thanks, Hannah.
You're on the next screen now.
Good, no, thanks, Councillor. So business investment, which is obviously one of the key areas there, just a number of comments to make. It obviously continues to be an important component. We have undertaken a review this year, undertaken by Martin Jenkins, just to review and provide a framework for the refocus going forwards, and that will certainly form the basis as we look to reset next year and continue the work. The primary sectors continue as we've reported previously. The food sector's there, and I'll just touch a little bit shortly on the food strategy. The distribution sector, and equally the infrastructure and construction. So those are the three primary sectors that we're focusing our efforts in, and that will continue into the current year. And as I alluded to earlier, that with the work now done by Martin Jenkins, we're going to be looking to increasingly focus our initiatives to support medium to large businesses, as well as grow the economic development across both of the existing businesses and inward investment, and certainly be a focus of the new CE when he arrives in early January. So just a little bit specific on one of them, if we can have the next PowerPoint on the food strategy. That is one of our priorities. We have initiated development of that strategy, and if you ask me to sum it up in one sentence, it is to identify the aspects, the areas of competitive advantage for the region that we can capitalise on to support economic development, and probably no surprising without foreshadowing what that strategy may see. It will clearly be linked to science, research and development across the river, and how we can build on that in terms of linking good ideas with business activities, with business investment. So by the time we get to the next quarter's report, then there will be a draft strategy. We will be beginning to consult on it, so we'll be in a position to talk more specifically around where those actual opportunities are. If we can turn to the next PowerPoint, just to touch on the other major strategy which is being developed this year, the Central New Zealand Distribution Hub. I'm presuming that's up there now. I can't see from here, but the strategy's developed. It's now in the phase of being implemented. 4 primary work streams, one around starting to communicate it and the opportunities, the advocacy, particularly with central and equally other local government, so starting to promote, build those areas of opportunity. The third work plan is about to be launched by the city, which is the development of the master plan that will support the inward investment, and the 4th work stream is around thereby accelerating inward investment. So the core of this is to establish this region as one of 3 key nodes of New Zealand's transport networks, the other being Ruakura, just outside of Hamilton, and Christchurch. So it would be fair to say, in terms of the strategy and our consultation with it, we've had a huge amount of support both from other TLAs within the region and equally from central government. So it's at the exciting stage now of being rolled out. If we just turn now to profiling the region.
Yeah, it's there.
We got that one there?
Yeah.
Profile, the PowerPoint profiling the region. Again, keep making the point. Profiling the city and region is a critical enabler of economic development. And in fact, the Mayor made the comment when he was linking through the presentation on retail spend, the way visitation drives retail spend, drives the economy. So certainly all the stats, all the work says that the work we're doing is attracting visitation and thereby economic wealth. The regional identity, the new brand, is now being launched, and you've been privy to that at a previous presentation, and now it's being increasingly used on all of the collateral that's being used around to promote the city. Equally good, we're supporting the new Palmy summer campaign. In fact, last night I saw the big electronic billboard in Wellington promoting Palmy and the region, so it was neat to see that up. A major event next year, New Zealand House and Garden. One of the 4 garden tours are in this region, and that will certainly bring significant visitors and spend. And then equally a lot of work being done around talent attraction, and that's my key now to hand across to Sarah Towers. And for those councillors who might not have met her, she is one of the key managers here responsible for that sector. So Sarah,
Thank you, David.
over to you.
Tēnā koutou katoa, everyone. Can we go to the next slide for talent and skills? So what I'm going to be doing is running through some of the key projects that we've been working on, describing sort of the stakeholder engagement that we've had across a number of sectors and work streams, and just to sort of let you know where those projects are up to and where we're heading with them. So if we can go to the next slide, thank you. So obviously as a region, we've got a number of sectors of strength, but for this kind of current financial year, the 2 that we're putting focus on is the infrastructure and construction and the food and fibre sector. You might sort of ask why those 2 sectors and not any of the others that are, equally important. When we hear those wonderful stats that were coming through on retail, obviously we don't have a bottomless pit of money, but we do know that with these sectors, there's expected growth with them, with the amount of work that's been identified through different things like resource consents. So what we've done to date is that we've got 2 talent and sector profiles for both infrastructure and construction and for food and fibre, and that's showing kind of the value of the employment, the amount of people that are employed, what that's looked like over the last few years, and then also tried to demonstrate what that might need to look like going forward. And with that going forward, that's where we have moved into doing a talent attraction marketing campaign for the infrastructure and construction sector. That went live at the end of last month, and to date we've already started fielding queries from people out of region looking at relocating here. One of the benefits of this campaign is the fact that we have partnered with AWF, a local recruitment agency, and while they specialise in a lot of the trades areas, what they're also doing is providing support for people that are looking at relocating with their what we refer to as their trailing spouse, So providing support for their partners, their wives, their husbands, and also for their wider whānau if they're bringing, working age children into the region. And if AWF don't have the right role within their organisation, then they will move forward to providing an opportunity for them to connect through to other recruitment agencies that might specialise in particular roles. Obviously, with this sort of work, we can't do this on our own, and what we've done is we have partnered with the infrastructure and construction sector, and that we've had a number of them that have come on board as co-funding partners for this campaign. So we've got UCOL, Downer, Higgins, Resonant, GJ Gardner, Turfrees and eHouse have come on board with it, and they have got direct line of sight from the landing page for this campaign through to their own websites where people can access information around what careers they've got available. What we've also done too is the campaign is directly linked to job roles that have become available through TradeMe and Seek, and those are available on the website so people can really see what's happening as far as careers go. But it's also telling the proposition of what the community in the region has on offer. So that lifestyle proposition, the fact that we've got more affordable housing here than other areas of New Zealand, such as Auckland, Tauranga, Wellington and Christchurch. So we, early days yet, but the, to date, we're very pleased with how the kind of, how it's tracking the engagement we've had with people and their connectivity through, through to the campaign and to organisations. Next slide, please. So the New Zealand Defence Force, so we've kind of got two parts of work that we're working on there. One of those is the relocation project, which was initially supported with a civic visit up into Whenuapai. So it's helping support staff and their families that are relocating to Whenuapai to Ahakia. Obviously, they're going through challenging times themselves as an organisation. They've had to have a lot of staff divert into other roles to, help with managed isolation. And what we have also discovered is that all of the staff over the next couple of years that are relocating will actually be spending a period of time in America. So they'll relocate down here and then they're spending 6 months over in America. So some of their families may come down right away. Others of them might still not arrive for another sort of 6 to 12 months. I know talking to Rangitikei District Council and when they've talked to local real estate agents, a number of the staff have already purchased homes or are looking at building, and so they seem to be very proactive. At this point in time, the Defence Force are just wanting to keep us in mind and the other partners, Whanganui Partner and Rangitikei District Council, to see what sort of pieces of work need to be done next. But at the moment, they don't think that there's any need to do what had been initially proposed, which was some sort of expo or fair, which was connecting the staff and their families to services that might be of use of them to help with that relocation. Another piece of work that we're doing with the Defence Force is we're looking at how we can support their personnel that are looking at exiting from their Defence Force career. And two things that we're going to be doing. We will host an event where we invite employers to come along to find out about the benefits of employing Defence Force personnel within their workforce. The New Zealand Defence Force currently think that there are some employers that have reservations about employing ex-personnel that they, which isn't actually true. The sorts of things that has been described is that because they've only ever worked in some form of hierarchical structure, that's the only way that they can operate or work. Or if they're sort of used to barking orders at other people, that might be how they behave within their workplace and a civilian life. So we're going to connect them through the Defence Force and existing employers that have employed them to demonstrate the benefits and how they can form part of a workforce pipeline for other businesses. And then the other thing that we're going to do is we're going to do a seminar for the Defence Force personnel that might be looking at getting out of their Defence Force career and helping them understand the fact that they might like to consider actually starting up their own business and what sort of that might look like and the services and support that can be provided by CEDA or through other organisations.
Can I just interrupt you there? Sorry.
Yes.
Could we just summarise it a little bit? Because we've got other presenters online for.
Okay.
I just wonder if we're nearly at the end of the presentation.
Yep, 2 more slides. I can summarise it in that. So if we can just go to the next slide, please. So it's pathways to employment and career development. So we're looking at, we've got New Zealand Careers Expo holding an exposition down here in June next year. We're going to be creating a digital hub of content around pathways to employment and career development. And we're looking at how we can bring together all of the sort of different internship programs that are available nationally or within region into a one-stop digital hub. And we're also facilitating next year with Ministry of Education funding education enterprise tours, which will take employers out take education staff out into the employers' places of business to learn more about work readiness and the role that they play. Next slide. And then the last piece around employer and workplace development. So we are looking at developing tools and workshops that will help support businesses in managing their workforce pipeline. So everything from, developing skills around the treaty, what it might be like to employ people with disabilities, bringing on board youth and migrants as part of their workforce planning, and looking at how they can build on their reputation and branding to add to how they can go about attracting organisations. And last slide, and just to let you know that we've got some great working relationships with UCOL, Young Professional Network, the Network of Skilled Migrants, CASMA. We've got the Central Region Talent and Skills Advisory Group, which is linking very nicely through to the Regional Skills Leadership Group, which is run by MB. And we've got working relationships with Central Skills Hub, Talent Central, and the National Driver Training Centre underway. So any questions?
Let's just go to the last slide, and then I will just was about to say that was the end of our presentation. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you.
And hopefully the last slide has come up. It's come up with the regional ID, the Manawatu.
That looks lovely. Thank you. Thank you. And I'll just put it up for questions. Thanks very much, David. I'll just start. I've got a couple of questions. One is deciding how they were the priority sectors. So you had infrastructure, agriculture and distribution. How did health not get into a priority sector?
Yeah, so as I said, look, we could have chosen any number. We had to start somewhere. We based it on, with the infrastructure and construction sector, the fact that there had been so many resource consents and the big roading projects that were going on as far as the shovel-ready ones. So just knowing that there was definitely going to be work needed there. And with the food and fibre sector, that was decided because with the changes with immigration policy, we knew there was going to be a skill shortage of people that would normally have had roles filled from migrant workers coming in.
But there's a skill shortage of health workers, would you not say?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're doing other work with the health sector. So we're helping support them with getting information up on the Manawatu NZ website around what that sector looks like, getting some good stories and narratives around people that have relocated through from other regions to work here, and showing what sort of the breadth of opportunities are available.
Okay, thank you. I'll just see if there's any other questions. No? Thank you very much for your presentation today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'd like to move that presentation, seconded by Councillor Dennison. If we could look to vote. Thank you. That's passed unanimously. Thanks for that. And next we have a presentation from Palmy Bid. So we've got Amanda and Rob. Sorry, Rob, I can't see you.
We're here, we'll be on the side of your screen somewhere.
Yeah,
Many people say it's a bonus not being able to see me, so well done.
we're ready when you are.
Okay, we have a presentation as well, so shall I just launch that one?
Yeah, and you've got 10 minutes. I should have said that before. I didn't say that to the last one, so sorry about that.
That's okay. Sweden can have half of our time. We'll be swift.
Thank you.
You can see this. Okay, so does that come up on your screen?
Go. We can see that.
Okay, right, we will begin.
All right, well, thank you everyone. I appreciate the opportunity to touch base, and this is really just a chance to update you with where we've been over the last 6 months or so. I know as councillors you're in receipt of a lot of information that is as important, if not more important, than the stuff that Palmy Bib's doing. But just to recap, we're an incorporated society representing the Palmy City Centre, a membership organisation funded by a targeted rate with more than 1,200 property and business owners. Key to us is that we're a vehicle to translate community aspirations into action. You'll recall that we were accepted by the community in a vote in December 2020, 12 months ago, and included in the council 10-year planning process, which we think sort of finished up in July last year. The boundary is the ring road, the outside of the ring road, plus a little bit of a spurt up Broadway and including Main Street in our catchment. Our deliverables, well, we're here to advocate for business and community interests within the bid and provide representation. We want to focus on business growth through collaboration, marketing, events and public relations, and we're looking for seeking opportunities to grow the city centre. We're also looking to support our community members to achieve their goals in a safe and vibrant city centre. In terms of a recent focus since the last time that we caught up, key milestones or key events for us have been the advocacy that we undertook for the community in relation to the increase in car parking charges and extended hours. We've been working on solutions relative to problems with rangatahi in the CBD, and Andrew from the Plaza mentioned the issues that he's been having. It's a complex problem requiring a complex solution, but we're pleased to be involved in that. We've been working on solutions relative to begging in the CBD, mainly around engaging with our members and supporting them and engaging and coping with beggars that are affecting their businesses. We've been working hard on refining our vision and mission, and that's now in the form of quite a succinct business plan that aligns council, bid and community goals. We've been working with council and negotiating a funding agreement, which was a key operative piece of the bid council framework that's just been completed. We've held a second AGM, and throughout the last 5-6 months, we've maintained momentum in terms of events and communications. We have a database of in excess of 650 business and community members, and communications with them receive an open rate around 35%. So we're touching people on a regular basis and generating good interest, we feel. Just to let you know, the outcome of the AGM was the election of the following individuals to the permanent committee. We have 2 spaces available yet to fill, and we're working with a couple of individuals at the moment. Intention is to co-opt in the new year and continue our thrust for a diversity of perspective, because that's important. We need to represent all members of our community on the committee. What's next for us? Well, we almost feel that we're at the starting line. We're sort of within days of receiving the first tranche of funding that represents the targeted rate. We're in the process of finalising our operational structure, and we're working closely with the Chamber of Commerce in that regard. They'll be helping us out. Then we'll move to full implementation of our business plan. I think the advocacy focus in the year ahead for us, based on feedback we've heard from both council and from the community, is the Streets for People streetscape redesign, Central City parking. There's a major piece of work happening there in the new year. The regional city transport situation, And the civic and cultural precinct, I think, will involve us in terms of our role as a conduit between the community and council. I think that's us in terms of where we are. I'm happy to open it up for questions.
Thank you, Rob and Amanda. We'll open up for questions. Councillor Barrett.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Amanda. Just had a question around language, and just looking at the website, which is looking really nice and colourful. But the references there are to that lovely acronym that we all enjoy, CBD. And just wondered again about sort of emphasising that sort of messaging versus something along the lines of city centre. I heard you say city centre quite a few times, but when you hit the website, you see CBD. To me, be interesting to know what the thinking is within the bid around that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And to be honest with you, the website isn't what we've been using specifically. It's there, it's been a holding space and it hasn't been updated. We have reframed some of our, we're reframing our language and using city centre more. So we're using it a little bit more interchangeably, CBD, city centre, and that's reflected in our business plan as well. So,
Our fresh, Council, our fresh website will be on one of the items of our first, quarter next year. We'll receive some funding, and so there'll be expenditure there, which will be, in terms of look and appearance, will be similar to the holding page, but will be a lot more comprehensive, and will update the language that, as you suggest, is possibly a little bit dated. The other thing we're focusing on is not necessarily talking about business, but we are focused on the city centre community as our catchment. Yeah, good question there. Thank you.
Great. Thanks both for the answers, Madam Chair.
Thank you. The Mayor.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Amanda. Quite a broad brush in terms of what the bid is wanting to do and planning, but are there any specific projects that are like a standout, whether it be a campaign or some project that is planned for the coming 2022 year, or is that still in the pipelines?
it is still in the pipelines, but I think Rob sort of put what our focus will be. I mean, you heard from Andrew earlier, and crime and safety is really high on our agenda. It has to be, because even, in the last year where we've been sort of setting up and getting things going, that's probably what we hear most from everybody on the street. Unfortunately, that's the situation. So that is going to be a focus for us, as well as all the fun stuff as well. But that is, is a genuine issue for us.
I think, Mayor, certainly the focus for us will be engaging more with the community. I mean, we're at the starting line, but it doesn't mean we stop sort of listening to what our people have to say. And so in terms of what we want to plan, in terms of promotional events and other activities, we want to engage and make sure we're hitting the right marks. We get feedback from people to make sure that we're satisfying what their requirements are.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. That's all the questions we've got for today. Thanks very much for presenting to us today. And
we'd just like to say as well, we'd just like to extend thanks to David Murphy, Keegan, Steve Hudson and the team there. They've been absolutely amazing to work with. We look forward to engaging more with you next year, and next time in person would be really good as well.
Well, have a Merry Christmas, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Would like to move this recommendation, seconded by Councillor Dennison. Any comment? Okay, we'll look to vote. That's passed unanimously. So we'll move to the next item, which is the minutes on page 59. So I'd like to first off move those minutes, seconded by Councillor Dennison. Anybody got any comments? Oh,
Madam Chair, I just note the minutes are quite different. It says I'm away on council business, yet it's 16 votes for, none against. Means I must have been here.
no.
Oh, sorry. Okay. The brain's clicked in, thank you. It just doesn't list everybody, that's all. Other minutes do.
So, happy, any other comments, or we're happy to vote on the minutes? Yeah. Okay, look to vote. Right. That's passed, 14 votes for and 1 abstained. Thank you. Now moving to item number 10, which is you, Peter. And we've got the right version, the September version. Thank you.
There is a presentation.
Great. I can't see. When you're ready, Peter.
No.
That's the cedar one again.
Well, kia ora, Mayor and councillors. I'll start anyway because there's the first slide is just numbers, and so I'll start to talk those through. The latest population estimate is 90,500 people, quite a small increase, 170 people in the last year, and a big part of that has been the border closure and the impact on the loss of international students. International student numbers in the city, both in tertiary and schools, dropped by 400 in the last year. 52,900 employees. The stats show a very small decline, but Statistics New Zealand revised up our 2020 job numbers by 800 people. So they're now saying from 2019 to 2020, jobs in the city increased by 1,700 jobs. But we lost 100 in the last year. Again, tertiary education was a factor. Commercial accommodation also declined. And we're seeing ongoing decline in supermarkets and department stores, and some of that's technology. But I think it may also be just changes in the level of casual part-time versus full-time, because people are just working on a casual basis are still counted as one job. Annual salaries and wages over $3 billion in the year to September 2020, 8.3% annual increase in the city compared with 4.7% for New Zealand. So very strong income growth that we're seeing in the city. And then that flows through into the annual earnings, which includes self-employment, 6.4% increase compared with 5.6% for New Zealand. This is just a quick overview of the population change. The middle bars are the natural increase, so that's the difference between births and deaths. That's been slowly declining, but interestingly, the last September quarter we had about 80 more births compared with the same period a year ago. So last Christmas was quite productive. The blue, of course, is overseas immigration, so you see that had been growing and then suddenly stopped. and the red is the estimate of the loss of people within New Zealand. So people arriving in the city, but sometimes spreading out to the smaller communities around the city. Just an overview of the key sectors. Health is still the largest sector, but is getting caught up with by the public administration and safety services. Earnings there rose 12% in the year to March 2020. That reflects growth nationally. Nationally, that sector saw a $1.4 billion increase in earnings in the last 12 months. And the central government sector has increased jobs nationally by 30,000 people over the last 3 years. So very strong growth in that. Education's quite weak and was a weaker year for logistics, but still very strong growth, 214% in earnings over 20 years. Some positive, just a quick snapshot of some of the indicators from the lead earnings data. So we're seeing a slowing in turnover across businesses within Palmerston North and nationally. And a positive one is the ratio of Palmerston North to national median earnings. So employers generally haven't had to pay people as much to come and work in Palmerston North as the main centres. So our median earnings have been below the average for New Zealand, but we're seeing earnings here growing faster than the average for New Zealand. And so that gap has closed quite a bit over the last 20 years. Just the latest GDP estimates, there was certainly a drop in GDP in the September quarter, but not to the same scale as we saw in the June quarter last year. So a much shorter lockdown, and so Infometrics is estimating about the drop in GDP is about a third of what we saw in the June quarter a year ago. Job seeker numbers coming down, and you can see the city's growth has been ahead of the national growth rate since late 2018. And so even during 2019, which was before COVID started, job seeker benefits were picking up across New Zealand, but were actually trending down in Palmerston North and have been coming down much faster than for New Zealand since the end of last year. This is Infometrics estimates for unemployment. The city tends to have a higher unemployment rate than the average for New Zealand, and that's because we have a young population. You know, the unemployment rate for the 65 and over age level is very small. Yeah, there are actually people who are officially unemployed even though they're over 65, whereas the unemployment rate is much higher in the 15 to 24 age group, and because we have a much bigger population with that actually biases the numbers when you report the city. So if I actually showed those by age band, you would see Palmerston North probably below the trend for New Zealand, but when you lump it all together, it looks a bit worse. Retail, level 4 hits retailing in the city the same as the national trend, and level 3, but as soon as we get back to level 2 and now the orange traffic light, you see the city retail turning around quite quickly. So again, much smaller downturn than we had in the June quarter last year, and already back to growth in October, and expect that to continue. Buildings consents, just really strong growth continuing in residential, and also quite still commercial, non-residential, quite high. Sorry, just take some water. We reached a new record of $300 million in annual building consents in May last year, sorry, and passed $400 million in the year to October. Last month, the provisional data show we issued another $40 million in consents compared with $20 million a year ago. So just really strong momentum. Yeah, those residential consents 10 years ago, we were just over $50 million. Now we're close to 250 million. And that sort of ongoing strength with the number of new dwelling consents. Interestingly, after a period of flatness, both in Horowhenua and Manawatu district, we've begun to see those lift up again. So good to see, because there is such a big shortage of housing across the region. But the smaller councils, Rangitikei, Tararua, Rupai, have really struggled to see a significant lift in building. Some really positive data in the latest CoreLogic monthly report for November. So this is an average of the 3 months to November, 2.3% increase in house values. That's dropped significantly compared with other centres. And as a result, we're actually beginning to see a widening in that gap again between the house value of houses in the city and the value for New Zealand, which is now getting close to $1 million. So the increase in the quarter for the city was 2.3, but the national increase was 5.4%. Last year we overtook Christchurch, but they actually had a 10% increase in the last quarter, so now beginning to catch up with the city and may overtake it. Just a quick snapshot of what's happening on the rental side. Seems to have been quite a bit of volatility from year to year, growth and then a decline. Now had sort of 2 years of successive growth, but essentially since 2012 we've seen overall housing growth increasing much faster than rental growth, and so that implies increasing levels of home ownership in more recent years. And some very positive news recently with Fonterra, but also meat prices really strong. Yeah, so record prices from a world index view, but the red line is what the farmers here get, and that's the red line. The difference between those two, starting from 1986, has been the appreciation in the New Zealand dollar compared with other currencies in the world. So although our commodity prices have increased by 375%, some of that benefit has been lost to producers because the dollar has appreciated. But then that reduces import costs, so they do still see some benefit from that. So just what's the outlook for next year? Construction, if you look at that $420 million in consents up to November, that's a signal of work coming, mostly. And so it's just going to continue to drive employment growth and spending. A lot of impact from those really strong commodity prices. Yeah, that will increase spending again in the city and region. The interest rate rises will have an impact, and also the new Reserve Bank restrictions on lending. In the year to September, car imports, the value of car imports increased by 54% on the year before. And a lot of that was driven by house price growth and people then being able to go and borrow money to buy a new car or expensive car. And so areas like that will be hit hard when house price growth slows, because people have less potential to go and borrow money. But because we're seeing construction, health sector growth, logistics and export commodity prices, there's still going to be income growth that would continue to drive spending. So that's my end of my presentation.
Thank you, Peter. We do have questions?
Yes.
Right. The Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Peter, as always. Good overview. The population one's interesting, and I say that because, and I hope CETA is still online. I just got a document today, and I think Mr. Murphy might have got it as well, and it had our population slightly decreasing, and I don't know where they get these figures from, at 87 or something thousand. You've put it quite clearly at over 90, And I gather, you know, talking to the DHB, and you and I have had this discussion many times, that actually it's probably higher than what it actually is there as well. Do you relay those figures to CEDA?
Yes, we have a shared data file where I have a whole wide range of headline data which I update on a regular basis, and they receive the quarterly report.
Could I ask you to just emphasise what our actual population is again to them? Thank you.
Just a quick comment on the population numbers. In August, the Statistics New Zealand published the Household Labour Force Survey, and they estimated that the working age population in the Manawatu-Wanganui region increased by 200 people from a year ago, but jobs had increased by about 3,000, and it didn't make sense. So I contacted them, and they said that for the numbers are provisional, and normally they like to update their database of central government information, health records, births and deaths, education data, but they weren't able to do that in time for the 2021 estimates. So there will be revisions to the estimates next year.
Okay, thank you. If you could just keep on to them, I think we trust the DHB's numbers better.
Right, Mr. Karatiana.
Thank you, thank you, Madam Chair. Kia ora, Peter. I was just dwelling on 4.2 in your report, and I was just wondering whether decline in employment includes both job loss and job vacancy. And I'm asking that because I noticed that air conditioning and heating services are high on the list, which seems at odds with the high levels of employment in construction and infrastructure.
I thought that was just a note of the sectors that had recorded losses. Yeah, so, no, yes, sorry, and yeah, I talked about 4.2 is the ones that where there were job losses, and 4.3 identifies where there were job increases.
So if a job was just vacant, would it be recorded as a job loss? So if they weren't able to replace?
No. There's two sets of measures of data. The annual data is based on the count of people employed during a month. So it does pick up a lot more of the casual jobs, but Statistics New Zealand also does a filled jobs measure, so it's only counting those people who are in a job. So if the council's got quite a few vacancies, but none of those are counted as jobs.
Thank you, Peter. Madam Chair.
Councillor Naylor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Peter. A couple of questions. The first one also related to the population. On page 66 and 2.11, it's got that Statistics New Zealand estimated it to be 91,500, but then in 3.1, the Manawatu region population report shows it at 90,500. And is one of those an error, or is there actually 1,000 difference between those two estimates?
No, that must be just a typo. It should have been 90,500.
Okay, I know that's helpful. And interesting to note in 2.11 also it talks about, and also somewhere else in the report, talks about the health enrolments in the city being at, I think it says 82,528 here, and in another part of the report it's a similar amount. So the difference between that and what our estimated population, obviously there's a bit of a gap there, and I guess where I think this is relevant for us to have an understanding of it, particularly as a city we're tracking the COVID vaccination rates, and I think many of us are aware of the recent announcement that the city was at 100% for first dose. And
is there a question, Councillor?
Yep, there is a question. Sorry, I'm just trying to explain my reason for the question, because it's, I guess, do you have any sort of insight to put on that in terms of how that helps us look at the data that we're getting in terms of vaccinations?
I think the vaccination estimates are based on the estimated total population and not the enrolments. Because there's always a gap. People are slow to enrol, so nationally the number of people enrolled is always less than the estimated population.
As opposed to, so you're not, okay, perhaps I'll just leave it there. So I guess what I'm trying to understand is this giving us an indication of a number of people who aren't enrolled?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is pretty consistent across New Zealand.
Yeah. Okay, I'll leave it there, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Peter. So from my read of the numbers, it looks like traffic flow, as we're measuring, it's growing at something like at least 5 times the rate of population. Have I got that right?
Probably because it's recovered from last year's lockdown, and because they're annual averages. So because we had a much longer period where shops were closed and we weren't really meant to travel, that did have quite an impact on traffic flows a year ago.
Right. So would you then caution us in terms of waiting for some of those fluctuations to get through the system before drawing conclusions?
Yeah, the lockdowns have made a mess of the data. If you look at the retail data, the GDP data, we're getting these big fluctuations when we recover from a period of activity stopping, and it's going to take a while for the pattern to return to normal. Yeah, so even in a year's time, the numbers are going to look actually worse for the region and the city compared with the national trend, because Auckland was in lockdown for such a long period. Our growth will be reasonable, but the national data will be booming, but not a real boom.
Great, thank you for that clarification, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Peter. There's no further questions. Thanks for your report. So I'd like to move this recommendation that the summary report on the on September 2021 Palmerston North Quarterly Economic Monitor Annual Population Report and Annual Business and Employment Report be received. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Dennison. Take comments. Firstly, the Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Peter. Another really good, thorough report, and I think it shows our diverse economy that we've got here. We're not basing it on one or two sectors, not all the eggs in one basket scenario. And although, education has suffered a little bit, and Peter spoke about the international education, I just want to acknowledge our international team, new international team in the gallery as well. And I'm sure you'll get those numbers back for us. We've got other sectors that are going really well. The stats again are strong. Visitor spend, low unemployment, high building consent numbers and values. I suppose I caveat that with the housing value growth and that affordability challenges that we have. I can't see that changing anytime soon. But also GDP growth increased by 4.6%, and if you look at Accelerate 25, the whole growth plan of the city and the region was to grow, and that's ahead of the national average of 3.7, and traditionally the city was below the national average. One thing that was really important, and I think it's the most important stat, was the annual salaries and wage growth, and this grew by 8.3% to 3.3 billion. Now that's not just the total number of jobs, in fact I think they went slightly down, but the value, and I think that's the big thing, the value of what people are getting employed or what they're taking home has increased quite significantly, and I think that's a really, really positive stat. So again, thanks Peter for your eagle eye on it, and have a chat to your friends down in Stats about the population. Thank you.
Just also like to comment, and just in line with what CEDA had done with the priority sectors, and just knowing that we've got priority sectors as a council that we need to make sure that we keep chipping away at, and they are health, and I think we do need to make sure that the health sector is really well supported along with retail and the other sectors. We do harp on a lot about the distribution sector, the construction sector, but we have got our backbone sectors like retail and like health, and we do need to make sure that those backbone sectors in education are well supported as well. So thank you very much, Peter and team that have done that report. And we've also got now Councillor Naylor that's come into the queue.
Sorry if I was a bit late there, Madam
That's all
Chair.
right.
Just thank you for the report. I did want to just make a brief comment on the issue of the 82,000 in our city that are enrolled in health. And I guess whilst it's primarily a health issue, I think it is also an issue for us to be able to understand as council, because we do have a role in managing the risk around COVID, and with the vaccination rate, having an understanding of that would be useful in terms as we apply tools to address the risk. I had the understanding that the percentages that are being reported are actually on the health service users, but at some point it would be good perhaps for us to have that clarified, so that does give us some context of the percent of our community who are vaccinated. Yeah, I do think that would be perhaps a useful thing for us to have clarified at some point. But definitely that 8,000 in our community who aren't enrolled, I think whilst that is a concern, primarily for health, but I think it's something for us to just be aware of as we look at the whole picture of what that means for our community as well.
Thank you. And Councillor Dennison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess what this report I wanted to highlight with all the presentations we had today is that when we have a strong city and some strong indicators for the city, that the region actually benefits significantly. We had the presentation where the Rangitikei is having population increase with the Ohakea being expanded with Whenuapai coming down as one example. We've got the gorge, the new road that's being constructed, which will lift Tararua's value, and as the land value and hence property values increase in the city, that will overflow into the districts. And so the employment stats, all the indicators in my mind show that the city's leading the way in creating a strong region. So I think it's very, very positive, particularly coming out of COVID and moving into the space of living with COVID. It would be just interesting to watch the next quarter more specifically, just see the effects of that, but otherwise I get a sense of a pretty positive feel. Thank you.
Now we'll look to vote. Thank you. That's passed unanimously. If we can move on to the next report, which is item number 11. Now we'll just take this report as read, and I will look to move the report, seconded by Councillor Dennison. Has anybody got any questions of the report? Does Councillor Bowen got a question? Anybody got any questions to Councillor Bowen of the report? No, it doesn't look like anyone's got any questions for you, Councillor Bowen. So this has been moved and seconded. Great, thank you for that report, and we'll look to vote. Right, moving on to item number 12, which is the work schedule. Hand over to you, David.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No specific comment on the work schedule, but a bit like I did this morning with the couple of new appointments into the planning team, as the Mayor touched on earlier in the meeting, we've got a couple of new staff in the gallery today working in our international relations space that will be reporting into this committee. So I've got Gabrielle Nguyen, who's our new International Relations Manager, and we've got Kate Harridge, who's our new International Relations and Education Advisor. So Gabrielle fulfills the role that Tony Grace had, and Kate's role is a new role, so it's partly in support of the international relations function, and the other half of the role is supporting the international education function, which came over from CEDA, providing coordination support to the international education sector. So both Gabrielle and Kate will be reporting in through this committee, so I thought it was just an opportunity to formally introduce those to you. So, cheers.
Thank you, David. I've moved that work schedule and seconded by Councillor Dennison. Has anyone got any questions of David? No? We'll look to vote. Great, that's passed unanimously and we are now done. Thanks everybody. It's 2:30.